Hi, everyone. My name is Jasmine, and you are listening to Faithfully Uncool. Welcome to my little corner of the internet where I talk about faith, religious studies, spirituality, and life. Today, we are going to be talking about ways to feel more happy and get in touch with feeling more joyful. I know that the news has felt very heavy, and also just my life has felt very heavy. I'm preparing for a new job, new responsibilities are coming up. There's a lot of change happening in my life, and that always makes me feel a little bit more anxious and a little bit more like I'm running out of time or that I'm going to miss something. And sometimes being in that state of mind is really, really hard to kind of see a way forward or to make the critical decisions or the wisest decisions that I need to make. And so, with this episode, I just want to talk about some practical ways that might help you to get in tune with your joy and self care practices when the world or your life in particular feels a little bit heavy. It is currently, as I'm recording, the summer solstice, and it's the longest day of the year. So I'm feeling very inspired because it's beautiful weather. So hopefully you're getting beautiful weather and sunshine. And with no further ado, let's get into it. So, I've broken down these best things to do when you're feeling heavy, or as I call them, steps through heaviness, when we're feeling like the world or our life is just getting too overwhelming, too heavy. Some quick ways, or reasonable ways at least, that we can check out, get in touch with ourselves, get in touch with our joy, self care, etc. And so I've got 7 ways that we can do that. And number one, I would say, is actually to read a good book. Escapism isn't always bad. Sometimes you need to retreat a bit. You need to do a childhood thing that you love. And I know that for me, that's reading a book. Maybe for you, that looks a little bit different. Maybe it's going outside, going for a walk, going on a hike. But I know that for me, reading through a good book, or at least reading about something that interests me, is sort of a way for me to check out a little bit and just maybe get outside of what's making me feel a little bit worried or in my head too much, and really just have time to check in with a fictional universe that makes me feel better and loved, or that I get to kind of guess what's going to happen next. I don't know. It just kind of literally takes me to another world. It's like traveling for free, or at least for far less expensive than travel costs right now, because airline tickets are absolutely insane. I would say reading a good book is a really, really great way to kind of get in touch with yourself and get in touch with what makes you happy. So, whatever genre is your shtick, I definitely recommend. Now, let me ask you something. Were you a play outside kid? I definitely was. And number two would be to revisit that part of you, if you were, that was a play outside kid. And if you didn't really play outside much as a kid, then okay, if this is still for you. But I would definitely say to get outside your home, whatever that looks like. And I understand that this can be different because I live in an area where not every neighborhood is actually very walkable. Some places don't really have sidewalks and it's a little bit crazy. But if you live in a walkable neighborhood, lucky, lucky you that you get to do this very close to home. Maybe you have to drive a little bit to get to the nearest park. However that looks like, I know that it can be so different depending on where we live, and but I would definitely say, whatever that looks like for you, to get outside the home and just enjoy nature in your own way. I know for some people, being outside is very active or very physical. You like to run, go on 5Ks, 10Ks. Maybe you do go rucking events where you have like the weights on your back. And I have so much respect for you if that's you. I am not someone who does a lot of active stuff outside. But just today, as I said, it is the summer solstice. I had a really nice picnic just out outdoors, because I wanted to. And I had a short walk and it was great. And I don't know if this is just me, but I have truly had to challenge myself to leave the house, even if I don't have anything going on or I don't really want to go to the store, I don't need anything. I've had to really say, Jasmine, get outside, go outdoors, explore in your own small way, get some sunshine for your mental health. And the reason being is because maybe this is just me, maybe I've just had an overreaction to things, I don't know. But during the pandemic, I really developed this aversion to going outside my home. And I think, especially if you live alone, especially if you work from home, it can be very difficult to go outside sometimes when you might not really need anything or want anything. And it can honestly have such an impact on your mental health. There are moments where I have gone outside and I'm like, okay, I was inside too long. Like, I just feel so much better. My head feels so much clearer. That thing that I may have been worried about at night, last night when I couldn't get any sleep, or this morning when I woke up, like, that doesn't even feel like a factor anymore. Maybe I just needed sunshine and to see grass? Like, it's just this weird psychological thing that I've experienced. And I definitely want to say that if that's you, and I truly feel like you can feel like that energy in you, that restlessness in you that wants to go outdoors and explore a bit. I mean, I remember playing The Sims as a teenager, and really random derail here, but if you've ever played The Sims, then you know that in Sims 3 and even in Sims 4, the current game, you have negative and positive moodlets. And one of the negative moodlets that you can get in Sims 3 was this moodlet that would say stir crazy. And when you went to it, it would tell you that your sim had been in the house too long. So that was your sign to like take them to a friend's house or to a pool or something. And I just feel like if you've got that restlessness in you, even if you don't want to spend money or you're not sure where to go, call up someone to maybe hang out or go outside yourself and just, enjoy the nature, explore. Like, I feel like we feel that within us when we're just ready and we know that we need to change our environment. So definitely give yourself the space to go outside, have a sip of tea. Maybe you have a porch, maybe you have a balcony, maybe not. I don't know. I don't know your life, but I'm just saying it's worth a shot. And especially if it's beautiful and sunny where you are, I hope you have a great time. Number four is similar to number one, actually, and that is to watch a funny movie or show. Ha ha ha, the joke is on me because this is actually number three. So let's just pretend that I did not totally miscount there. I honestly feel like it can be like a comfort thing. Some people have comfort foods. I feel like I have comfort TV shows and movies, especially when I feel like a lot of things are changing. I go back and I rewatch things that I'm already familiar with or that I want to be my comfort show. I was watching a YouTube video the other day where this girl was saying that Gilmore Girls is like her comfort show, and I can totally see why, right? Like, it's got a very homey, funny, calm feel. It's that kind of vibe. It's that sort of warm hug vibe. And I feel like some movies and some shows just feel that way for us. I know for me, I think a show that felt that way for me growing up was As Told by Ginger. It was this cartoon where this girl wrote in her diary and she kind of narrated every episode or narrated at the end of the episode, but it was sort of like this coming of age cartoon. And I don't really see anything else on TV like it today, even though I don't really watch kid shows or cartoons, but I really enjoyed it. And I remember my senior year of high school when everything was about to change and I was about to go to college. I had not watched As Told by Ginger in years. And then what was I doing but on YouTube watching all the seasons of As Told by Ginger because I just wanted to have a nostalgic, comforting feeling before life went into, the big bad world of university. And I think that if that's you, if you need to watch, a funny movie or show, or even maybe it's not comedic, maybe it's an action adventure, or it's like a Marvel, I have no idea. Maybe you feel comforted by, you know, a freaking horror show. I have no idea. But I think that there are things that really give us that comfort and just peace of mind or bring us back to a happy time. And this again isn't about ignoring things that are actually wrong in your life, right? Like, I'm not saying, like, hey, you're late on your taxes, time to turn on Star Wars. Like, that's not the objective here. But what I will say is sometimes if we're just feeling a little bit anxious and it's something that reasonably we don't have a lot of control over, or we've done all that we can and we just need to calm down a bit or get back to center, as my yoga teacher will say sometimes, watching a movie or a show can really take that time for us the same way a book might. The fourth thing we can do for self care Or again, like I said, not to ignore problems, but when we have addressed problems or when we're thinking through something or we just need to take a time out really quick, sometimes it is helpful for us to take on a small, non-overwhelming task. Sometimes I think it's so cool to just remember your achievements and to not brush aside everything that you've achieved. I think one thing that I learned through therapy is that sometimes we can minimize our accomplishments and maximize our mistakes. And so when we do this, we can get into this headspace where it's like everything I do is wrong. What if my decision is wrong? What if I don't know what I'm doing? Now I regret my decision, right? Like we second guess ourselves, we second guess everything. If you're like me, you might second guess before you even make a move. Okay, so I don't know how it is for you, but one way to practice self care is to take on a small achievement or task that maybe it's a challenge for you, but it's a smaller challenge that's really worth taking on that'll kind of get you in good spirits and just remind you, like, hey, I can do hard things. And I wrote down here like decorating, cooking, gardening. I don't know why I wrote down things that I don't actually do, so that's a little bit weird in my script that I put that. However, I have a friend who really likes gardening, so I think he inspired that for me. And I do like cooking, okay? Home chef, holler at your girl, all right? If you can read, you can cook. I'm just saying, all right? I'm just hashtag not sponsored, but home chef, it's where I'm at. Decorating, I actually really do like decorating. I recently created a gallery wall in my living room and I'm very, very proud of it. So, yes, these small tasks or goals that you have, like achieve them, go for them, especially if you feel like other things in life just feel a little bit bigger or heavier or you're confused about something, sometimes getting my mind off of it temporarily helps me to come back to it a little bit clearer headed. But it can actually help me if instead of turning to the comfort show or reading a book, I do something that's been on my to do list for a while, like redecorating something or cooking, or okay, I know some of you like cleaning, so whatever, right? I don't have that gear. Like, I'm not someone who's like, oh my gosh, I cleaned my whole house and now I feel way better. Like, cleaning is definitely something that I do, but it has always felt like a chore ever since I was a child. Like, I didn't get the I'm so happy to be scrubbing my bathroom gene. However, I know that there are different things that we can use to kind of get our mind off something or to kind of gather our thoughts, but sometimes some of us think the best or can return to an issue or situation the best after we have actually accomplished something and taken a time out to do something else that was productive and then go back to whatever we need to address, assuming that that is something that we again have control over or can address or should address, etc. So I think that taking on these small achievable tasks is helpful, and I challenge you to not dismiss them, but to write them down. Like if you've achieved something on your to-do list, maybe give yourself a treat, like your favorite, dessert or something if you cooked dinner, or reward yourself by buying something that you want that's, within your budget. Like whatever it is, I think if you're doing something and you're like, oh, that was kind of a challenge, or I procrastinated a lot on that, maybe reward yourself for doing it so that you can remind yourself that it was worth it and it's great. In my notes app, I keep a note that has things that I'm happy that I did that were challenging for me. Maybe it was going to a social event or, I don't know, redecorating something or buying something or whatever it is. It might be something, again, minimal, right? We minimize the achievement, but when I look back on it, I'm proud that it's done. And I just think that this is a really great habit to get into, to pat yourself on the back for the things that you're doing right, particularly if you're nervous about something or maybe you're in a negative space where you feel like you do a lot of stuff wrong. Remind yourself that you do get stuff right and you can trust yourself and you can move forward. And I think that's a good part of self-care too. Sometimes it looks like action. Now, number 5 is a whopper. And it is something that I have done, and I'm very proud of myself for doing it. And I totally understand that it's not always feasible or accessible. I think our world is moving, hopefully, in a much more accessible direction with this thing. There are a lot of ways to do it online if you're uncomfortable going to an office, but whenever I talk about self care or ways to relax, I think I would be remiss to not point out the fact that sometimes when it comes to anxiety or feeling very anxious in our life, That is a medical thing or a clinical thing that we need to address in a more serious way. And sometimes confiding in our friends or family is not the best way to do things, and we need to seek a professional help or assistance in some way. And there's no shame in that. If you're coming from a religious background, a Christian background, I want you to know that it is completely okay to be Christian and take care of your mental health with a mental health professional. None of that is sinful. None of that is wrong. You should never feel ashamed for that. It has nothing to do with having too little faith or nothing like that. None of that weird mumbo jumbo that people like to guilt us with. If you need help, you simply need help the same way you would if you broke your leg, like go see a doctor. That's what they're for. And so, number five is to go to therapy. If you've been thinking about it, if you're questioning it, then go. And I will tell you something that all my therapists have told me, like in different stages of my life when I've been in therapy in college, beyond college, in my life now, therapists have mentioned to me, they've said, look, you don't have to wait for something bad to happen for you to come. Like, you can come. Like, we're here. Like, we're working and we're here for you. And so I would definitely say if this is something that you've been thinking about, if you're on the fence about it, seek it out. Online spaces that I hear about a lot are BetterHelp and Talkspace. Now, I won't vouch for these or say what's better than another. Of course, these are things that you'll have to look into because people have different preferences for their therapist, and I think that that is totally fine. But I would definitely encourage that if it's something you've been thinking about, that it can really be helpful and beneficial to give your mental health a priority. I truly believe that just having that non-judgmental person to speak with about our concerns or our worries can be incredibly fruitful and teach us a lot about ourselves and our values and how we want to move forward. And sometimes we just need that extra assistance, and the people in our lives cannot provide it or are not equipped to do so. And that's at no fault of their own, but therapy and therapists can be so, so beneficial and helpful. So I would never shame anyone for that. I've gone to therapy myself and honestly quite enjoy it, especially when matched with the therapist that's best for me. I think sometimes we can easily compare our experiences to other people and be like, oh, well, I haven't been through something as bad as she did or they did or he did or whoever. And so if they seem okay, surely I'm okay. Why do I need to go to therapy? I need to just suck it up. I need to be stronger. Sometimes we have strength as a part of our identity. Like, I don't need to do this. This is for people that are going through things that are more serious than me, or I shouldn't have to do this. Like, we almost put it in this strange like category of we don't need it, we're too strong for it, it's unnecessary. But I will say therapy can be very hard to go to. Therapists give homework, okay? Like, it's not always what you expect. And they can really tell you about yourself. And that is a hard journey and that is a brave journey. But I do believe that it's worth going on. So I wish you all the best of luck on that journey and absolutely encourage it if it's something that you think would help you. Number six is change your environment. Look, I already talked about getting outside. Okay. All right. I'm not going to talk to you about seeing the trees and the sky and the sun and the moon again. All right. You get it. But what I will say is that changing your environment is not just about the places that you go to. I'm actually talking about the company you keep because that involves your environment too. Maybe you're totally fine with going outside and having fun, but when you think about who you want to join you, you don't have the best people surrounding you. You know, do you and the people around you hold similar values? Do you feel like you can express your views with those people around you? Or do you think you end up defending your views more often or having to protect them? Or it just feels like the people that are in your life are not aligned with who you are or what you want for your future? Sometimes we have to get really honest about what the people around us represent and if we're okay with that. Today, I'm really thinking about this because I actually did a core values worksheet, and it was about how my values impact my financial decisions and my financial choices. So, how to kind of curate a budget that keeps in mind the things that are important to me. And things that I'd written down were things like compassion and justice and security and love and service to others and feminism, and they had like all kinds of values on this particular worksheet to kind of help me with managing my finances. And it was a really interesting exercise because it got me to think about how my financial decisions, what I save for, what I spend money on, where I spend my time and my energy, how they relate to my core values so that I can live more aligned, budget wise and money wise with the things that matter to me. And I think sometimes we have to do that with the people that we have in our life. The people in our life definitely impact our mental health. And this is so awesome because if we have great people around us who respect us and who care about us and who are in our corner, then this means that our mental health is better. We have somebody who we can lean on. We have somebody who supports us. I thank God all the time for the different relationships in my life because I have people that I can go to when I'm feeling really down or really confused or really want help with something or I've had a bad day. And I think something that I challenge myself to do is be vulnerable so that I can welcome those relationships into my life, but to also be upfront about my values and what I stand for so that people have the grace and the opportunity to honor that in me. And so I can honor that in them. And I think that that's really important. If a relationship is important to you, any kind of relationship, romance, friendship, family member, then give that person the grace and time to really have honest and deep and safe conversations with you so that you can kind of bridge that gap of misunderstanding that might be present. I know that there's this quote that says, imitation is the best or most sincere form of flattery. If I had a version of that quote, I would say curiosity is the most sincere form of flattery. I think we live in a really divisive world, unfortunately, and with division often comes assumptions about people who might have a different mindset than us. And I think that if we allow that to be something that we're always assuming and that we're bitter about, then we put up these roadblocks sometimes in our relationships that might not even be there. Because then we talk to people about our values and they're like, oh, I actually see your point. Or, oh, I think that too, but I just didn't know that you felt that way. Or I didn't know that I was crossing that boundary with you. I'll definitely reanalyze that, right? Like there are ways sometimes to move forward if we're not stuck in our assumptions. Other times, people absolutely do not respect us, are not curious, do not want to grow, and that's something different entirely. I said before, I'm not a career coach. I'm also not a relationship guru. So I trust that we can all make the best choices for ourselves, and you know the people in your life much better than I ever will. So obviously this will look different depending on the type of relationship that it is. But I will say that our mental health is affected by who we allow into our life and who we don't. And so it's really good to honor that and to take inventory the same way you would of your budget, the same way you would of your career, the same way you would of your goals. Take inventory of who's around you and be really honest about the relationships that you want to strengthen and the relationships that maybe you're starting to outgrow or that you want to see growth in or a change in or that are really harmful to you. And that can be hard to do. Not saying it's easy, but it is worth it. Also, just want to tack on here, super, super quick, don't ghost people. Like, unless they are actually toxic, which I will say does exist, right? Unless they are dangerous to you mentally, physically, psychologically, etc., right? You know who you're safe around, you know who you're not. Please do not ghost people. It's really immature. If you have a actual relationship with someone, any kind of relationship, I think people always assume romance, but I'm not talking about romance here, honestly. I'm talking about close friends, maybe even family members, romantic relationships, sure, but whatever it is, please do not ghost people. If there's an issue in a relationship, whatever it is, unless it really has of no consequence to you, unless it's just someone that you barely know, like a coworker or someone, to a point where any differences between you just do not matter, I would say that for most important relationships, ghosting is just so crazy. please, please do not resort to that unless, again, you're in an actually dangerous situation. I just think that most people deserve a conversation, and you can learn a lot. You can learn a lot, they can learn a lot, and it's just better to do it that way. So just want to put a little FYI out there. Unless you really feel that ghosting is the best way to go, please try to have real, honest, human conversations with people, regardless of whether or not you want to see a continuation of the relationship as it is or an end, whatever that may look like for you. Okay? Numero sept, number 7, the biblical number of completion, if you will. That is to ground yourself. Okay, so my next point to help you with your self-care, to help you in your times of anxiousness or when the world or your life feels heavy, too much, overwhelming, like everybody needs to hashtag chill, okay? Ground yourself. So if you're a spiritual person, I would say devote yourself more to your spiritual practice. Go to worship. Pray even when it's hard to believe. And turn your faith into action by volunteering or donating or finding reputable ways to get involved in your community and to seek a better world or difference in your local community. I know this might sound kind of wishy-washy and woo-hoo, but honestly, there are genuine ways to get involved. I've just moved to a new area, and thankfully, there are tons of churches around me, and one I'm considering joining, but many of the churches do different events for different communities, whether they might be homeless or underserved or resourced in some way. These churches are really active in the local community and have ways for us to practically get involved or give our resources or time. And so I would say to ground yourself, turn your faith into action if that's something that you're able to do, but also get deeper into your spiritual practice in general. Are you needing to journal or to pray or to get into a Bible study and you've been meaning to do that and you just haven't? And so you feel like you just get up and go. You don't have any time or space in your day to like settle or talk to the Lord or really get grounded in your faith. For me, just personally, it's honestly a great help to my day when I wake up and instead of first thing first looking at my phone, I make myself a good breakfast and get into scripture or journal or just do something a little bit more introspective that kind of works my brain a little bit more. And yes, I will be very honest here. Sometimes for me, that can kind of give myself a lot of time for my brain to wander. And sometimes I might get a little bit more anxious when I do that because I use my phone as a distraction. And so that's not good. But I do think that you can ground yourself and discipline yourself sometimes to, especially if you have this weird relationship with your thoughts where you're like almost afraid of thinking too much or getting too anxious or heavy. Something that I have expressed in the last episode is that I have obsessive compulsive disorder, and that's something that I deal with every day. Wake up with it, go to bed with it. And one of the challenges for me is sometimes just feeling like I just don't want my brain to latch on to a new problem or new thing to worry about and to not let go. That's a difficult thing for me, and it's a true fear of mine. But at the same time, I don't want to live my life by that fear. I don't want to live my life distracting myself because I'm afraid of what happens if I have too much time to think and then I think myself into a bad mood or think myself into something that I'm worried about and have a hard time releasing. And so instead of that, I use the practical tools that I've gained through therapy, and I walk towards my value of wanting to live out my faith. And for me, that looks like giving time to reading scripture and giving time to getting into the Bible and things like that, instead of living my life determined by my mental health issue or disorder, whichever word I guess is most appropriate. I live it based on what I genuinely want to do and what I know will make me feel proud and satisfied in my day. And so I will give this to you as the lucky number 7, the complete number 7, that if you are spiritually minded, if being spiritual is important to you, then I definitely recommend that you keep up that practice, you keep up that fellowship, you keep up being in community when you're feeling anxious or when you're feeling like things are heavy, because I find that that's when I want to isolate, and that's definitely not the best thing for me to do. So absolutely encourage you to do this in community, to help your community, to serve your community, but to also seek out God in the midst. And with that, thank you guys so much for listening to today's episode of Faithfully Uncool. Hopefully these 7 steps help you out whenever you need them. And thank you so much for spending your time with me. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider following, subscribing, and sharing with a friend. You can find me on Instagram at faithfullyuncool_podcast. Again, that's faithfullyuncool_podcast to keep up with new episodes. Have a great day. And as always, go in peace.